Hello coders, I welcome you all. In the last video, we explored the local implementation of version control using Git, right? We learned how to track changes in files, commit them, and navigate between different versions of our project. Today, we are going to take things a step further by introducing remote repositories, which is very important. Using remote repositories like GitHub, we can collaborate with others, back up our projects, and make our work accessible from anywhere. We will walk through the process of connecting our local repository to a remote one and discuss the essential commands we will need like git push and git pull, which is very important in managing project. By the end of this video, you will have the tools to manage your code across multiple machines and work with teams effortlessly. So let's get started. Let's say you are working on a project and a friend wants to collaborate. You could share the code using a pen drive, email, or Google Drive, right? But how will they check your code and add theirs? Every time they make changes, you will have to combine their code with yours manually, and that can be messy. Is there any better way to do this? Yes, using Git and GitHub. You upload your code to GitHub. They download it, make changes, and upload that code back to GitHub. GitHub tracks all changes, so you both know what was changed and by whom. No confusion, no mess, just smooth collaboration. Let's break it down visually. So here's you and here's your friend. In the middle, we have the central repository on GitHub, which is in the cloud, right? So right now, the latest code is available on GitHub. Let's assume that. You will pull the latest code from GitHub, work on adding a new feature, and then push your changes back to GitHub. After that, your friend will pull the latest code from GitHub and add their own feature and push the changes back. And this process goes on until the software is fully developed. Every time someone pushes and pulls, Git tracks the changes, making collaboration smooth and organized. Now here, the best part is, this is not limited to just 2 people. Any number of people can collaborate this way, whether it is 2, 10, or 100 developers. GitHub manages all changes efficiently, allowing everyone to collaborate to the project. Hope all of you are clear with this. Now that we understand how collaboration works, let's jump into the practical part. First, you will need a GitHub account. If you don't already have one, go to github.com that you can see over here and click on sign up button. It's free and easy to set up. Enter your details like username, email, and password. Follow the steps to verify your account and you are done. Once you have a GitHub account, you can create your first repository and start collaborating. Let me show you how to create a new repository on GitHub using your browser. You can see this is my GitHub account. So once you are logged in into your GitHub account, click on the plus icon here at the top right corner and select new repository. Now here we have to give our repository name, something relevant to your project. Let me give git test demo. You can give any, but something relevant to your project. Here we can add an optional description to explain what your project is about, and it is optional. Now next, choose whether you want the repository to be public or private. By default, you can see it is public. Public means anyone can see it. Private, only you and collaborators can see it. Currently, I am keeping it public. Next, initialize this repository with add a README file. You can choose to add a README file by clicking here. This file helps explain the project to anyone visiting your repository. But currently, I'm not adding it. Also, we can add README file afterwards. Also, add .gitignore that we can add from here. But I will show you this at the end. Now, finally, click on create repository. So once you click on create repository, it will show you the page like this. Now, as you know, we have already created our local repository in our last video, right? Now let's connect our local repository to remote repository, which is available on GitHub. As you can see, after clicking on create repository, it will show you these 2 options. First and second. First, create a new repository. Initialize a new Git repository, adds README file and pushes it to GitHub. And second option, push an existing repository. Connects your existing local Git repository to GitHub and pushes your code on GitHub. This allows you to start version control and collaboration using GitHub. Alright, since we have already created our local Git repository, let's move on to pushing it to GitHub. This step is crucial for sharing your code online and collaborating with others. So as we just discussed, we have already created our local Git repository. So here we are selecting this second step. So for that, we have to use these two commands. First and this third one. Now let's move to VS Code. Step 1. Add GitHub remote. So first we need to link our local repository to the GitHub repository, means to our remote repository which is available on GitHub. We do this by adding a remote repository using following command: git remote add origin, and we have to copy this particular link, this one, which is address of our remote repository. Let's copy this by pressing this button. Let's back to VS Code and let's paste it over here. So this command connects our local repository to the remote repository available on GitHub. Here you can see this is command, and here you can consider this as a variable name. So here origin is just a name we can give to this link. You can give any, but by convention we are using this particular name, origin, right? And the URL is where our GitHub repository is available, right? Let's press enter. Now done. Now that we have linked our local repository to the remote GitHub repository. Now let's verify this connection. Here we are going to check whether our local repository is connected to remote GitHub repository or not. To check the remote repository details, we have to use following command: git remote -v. You can see over here. This command leads the remote connections link to our local repository. It shows the URLs for both fetching and pushing code to the remote repository that you can see over here. This URL for fetching the code and this URL for pushing the code to the remote repository. Actually both are same. So now you can see we have confirmed that our connection to the remote repository is set up. Now let's push our local repository to remote repository which is available on GitHub. Let's clear this and let's check git log -1 line. You can see over here. Total we are having these 3 commits. Now to upload our local commits and files to GitHub, we have to use following command: git push origin that just we have set up, and master. Master is our current branch which is available in our local repository. Don't you worry, we will discuss branching and merging in the detail in our upcoming videos. But just remember, this is our master branch and currently we are having only one branch, master, right? Let's press enter. Now you can see all done. Now let's verify that our changes have been successfully pushed to GitHub. Let's move to GitHub and let's reload this page. Now done. You can see over here we have .gitignore file that we have already created in our last video, and these all Python files that we have created in our last video. Previously these files were available inside our local repository, and because of this following command we have pushed all commits and our files to our remote repository which is available on GitHub that you can see over here. And you can see commit history on GitHub. Let's click over here. You can see same commits we made locally that you can see over here. So our local commits that we have pushed on GitHub that you can see over here. Exactly same, right? Let's click on this particular commit. You can see over here. It is showing diff view that we have already discussed. Diff command, right? Let's back. Let's click on this particular commit. Here you can see plus sign and here also plus sign. So lines that were added in this particular commit that you can see over here. Let's move back and let's click over here. You can see here plus sign. This particular line was added in this commit, right? You can see if lines were removed are highlighted with minus. Hope all of you are clear with this. Let's move to insights and network. You can see over here different commits. So from here, we can gain a visual understanding of our repository's activity, including commit history and contributions that you can see over here, from insights and network that you can see over here. Our 3 commits. Now let's review everything that we have done. So as you know, we have initialized the Git repository using this particular command, git init. We have added our files to the staging area using this particular command, git add dot. Dot means all. Now our files are available inside staging area. Now we have saved a checkpoint, means our snapshot in our local repository with this particular command, git commit -m and commit message. Now you can see our files are available inside our local repository, means our snapshots are available inside our local repository .git directory, right? Hidden directory that I showed you in the last video, which is our local repository. Now in this video, we pushed our local repository with code and commits to the remote repository, which is available on GitHub using git push command, right? So we have done up to this. Hope all of you are clear with this. So now our files are available on remote repository on GitHub, so we can collaborate with others. Hope all of you are clear with this. Now let's move on. So now we have completed our first part, push the changes to GitHub, right? From our local repository. Now let me show you how to pull changes from the remote repository, which is available on GitHub. This is useful when you want to update your local repository with the latest changes made by others or from different devices. Let's check log. Let's move to VS Code. Let's clear this. Git log -1 line, right? You can see head, which is pointing to master. Consider this as a local, and this is for remote. Currently both are at the same location. This means your local master branch is now in sync, in synchronization with the remote origin master, which is available on GitHub. We can say our local repository is up to date with the remote repository and includes the latest changes, because here head is pointing at the same location, right? Now let's add a new file, test.py. Let's add, this is test file. Let's save our file. Let's check git status. You can see untracked files. Let's clear this. Git add dot. Let's add this file to our staging area. Let's check git status. You can see now this particular file is also available inside our staging area. Now let's commit, means let's take snapshot. Add test.py. Done. Now you can see this particular file is available inside our local repository, right? Let's check git log -1 line. You can see now head is pointing over here and our remote branch is over here, right? That you can see the main difference. Since we haven't pushed the latest commit yet, our head is pointing over here, shows the new commit locally, while this origin/master indicates the previous commit on GitHub. So now we have to synchronize this. So now let's push our code to our remote repository, which is available on GitHub. Let's clear this. Git push origin master. Let's press enter. Now done. Let's clear this. Again, let's check git log -1 line. Now you can see the difference. Head is pointing over here. Now you can see head pointer is changed. Both are at the same location because just we have pushed our code to GitHub, that you can see over here. This means our local master branch is now in sync with the remote origin master, that you can see over here. Hope all of you are clear with this. Now let's assume that your friend has now pulled the repository on his local machine and updated the code. Now let's consider this scenario. Here's you and here's your friend. In the middle, we have the central repository on GitHub, which is in the cloud, right? So right now the latest code is available on GitHub. And as you know, we have already pulled the latest code from GitHub. Also we worked on it. Assume that we have added new feature and also we have pushed our changes back to GitHub. Now suppose your friend is currently adding a new feature to our project. So after that, your friend will pull the latest code from GitHub and add their own feature and push the changes back. Now we have already discussed how to push our code on GitHub, right? Now I'm treating myself as my friend and I'm going to push this code on GitHub. Please remember, I am treating myself as my one of the friend or one of the teammate, and I am going to push the changes back to the GitHub by adding one new feature from my side. So as we discussed, we assume that our friend has now pulled the repository, updated the code and pushed the changes back to GitHub. For simplicity, I am going to create file directly on GitHub. Let me show you this side. Let's move to GitHub. Let's move to our repository, and here my friend is pushing the code by adding one new feature. From their side, let's create new file. Let's give file name new underscore feature dot py. Write print statement, add new feature. Let's press this particular button, commit changes. Let's give commit message, add new feature, and let's press commit changes. You can see our friend has added this particular file on GitHub, right? So please concentrate. This file is available on GitHub, but this file is still not available in our local copy at my side that you can see over here, right? So that particular file is not available over here. So let's clear this, and now we have to pull the updated code which is available on GitHub, because one of our friend has updated the code and already pushed the code on GitHub. Now it's my time to pull the latest code available on GitHub. So for that, we have to write following command: git pull origin master, because now we want to pull the latest code from the GitHub. Let's press enter. Please look at here. New feature added by our friend that you can see over here. New feature.py and one line is added. You can see one file changed, one insertion that you can see over here. And this particular file which is pushed by our friend is available locally that you can see over here. Hope all of you are clear with this. So this is how pulling and pushing changes happen between developers up to the final product development. That's all. So now let's discuss one more thing. As you know, we have already discussed .gitignore file in our last video, right? We have created this particular file and we have listed this particular file temp.py inside this particular file .gitignore, because we want Git ignore this particular file because it contains some sensitive information, right? Like API key, username, password, etc. So that we don't want to commit, right? So this way we can create .gitignore file and we can list the files we want to skip. But there is also .gitignore file available on GitHub with a list of the most commonly ignored files which we can directly use in our project. Let me show this. Let's move to GitHub. Let's move to our repository and let's create a new file. And here we have to write .git. Please look at here. Git ignore. You can see over here. Choose .gitignore template. Search for Python. You can see over here. So as I said, .gitignore file available on GitHub with a list of the most commonly ignored files that you can see over here. So most commonly ignored files are already mentioned in this particular file, which is available directly on GitHub. Additionally, we can add any specific files that we want to ignore, right? That we have to add in this particular file. First, let's commit changes. Let's give commit message. Add .gitignore file. Let's press this button, commit changes. You can see the particular message. A file with the same name already exists. Please choose a different name and try again, because as you know, we have already created this particular file and just we push everything on GitHub, right? Explain you this concept, I have to delete that particular file. Let's close this. Let's move over here and this is the file, and let's click delete the file and let's press commit the changes. Delete .git ignore local. Let's press commit changes. Now done. File successfully deleted. Now again, let's press create new file and let's search for git ignore. You can see over here. Now we have to choose the template. I'm selecting Python. You can select as per your requirement. Right? You can see, as we discussed earlier, .git ignore file available on GitHub with a list of the most commonly ignored files that you can see over here, right? And as I said, we can add any specific files that we want to ignore other than this. But commonly ignored files are already available over here in this particular list. Now let's click here, commit changes, add new .git ignore. Let's press this button, commit changes. Now done. That you can see over here. So now please remember, this particular file is now available on GitHub, but this is our old file .git ignore that we have created in our last video, right? So again, as you know, we have to do git pull origin master. Let's press enter. Now you can see over here .git ignore that we have added on GitHub now available in our local repository as well, right? And as I said, we can add any specific files that we want to ignore. As you know, we want to ignore this particular file because it contains API key and username and password that we don't want to commit. Let's move to .git ignore file and let's list this particular file. Save our file. Let's clear this. Again, let's check git status. You can see over here, this particular file is modified because now this updated code is available into our local repository, but now it's not available on GitHub to our remote repository, right? So again, we have to follow same steps. Git add .git commit m for message add temp.py in .git ignore file. Let's press enter. Now done. Now let's check over here on GitHub. You can see over here, temp.py is still not available over here. You can see this code is not up to date, right? Because here locally we have added this particular file to .git ignore file. So we have to push our code. Git push origin master. Let's press enter. Now done. Let's check git status. All done. On branch master, nothing to commit. Working tree clean. Let's check on GitHub. Let's reload our page. You can see over here. Now temp.py is available over here inside .git ignore template. You can see over here. But you can see that temp.py is not available over here because we have ignored that particular file because it contains some sensitive information that we don't want to commit. Hope all of you are clear with this, right? Our entire flow of GitHub. So as I said, this is how pulling and pushing changes happen between developers up to the final product development. Hope all of you are clear with this, right? So just you have to remember this particular scenario that we have discussed. Here's you and here's your friend. In the middle, we have the central repository, which is available on GitHub, means which is in the cloud. Right now, the latest code is available on GitHub, right? That we have assumed. So you will pull the latest code from GitHub, work on adding new feature, and then push your changes back to GitHub, right? After that, your friend will pull the latest code from GitHub, add their own feature and push the changes back to GitHub. And this process goes on until the software is fully developed. So every time someone pushes or pulls, Git tracks the changes, making collaboration smooth and organized. Hope all of you are clear with this. Hope you like this video. Please don't forget to subscribe this channel. If you like this video, smash that like button. Thank you very much for watching this video. Take care. Bye-bye. See you in the next video.